Hey guys, how we doing? Welcome back to another video. This one, we're going to talk some of my other cameras. The last couple videos we focused on the Ricoh GR3 and the Ricoh GR. I will have some comments coming up in the next video. Some of the blowback I got about that, and as you can imagine, some of it was somewhat negative. A lot of it was positive, which really kind of surprised me. This video, we're going to concentrate on the comments I got from the viewers regarding the Pentax K-70, the Fuji XT-1, also the Canon EOS RP, and what else? There was another one in there. Did I say them all? Well, so we'll get to those. Oh, and the book, the book publishing video that I did just released. Got a lot of good positive comments on that. I think that helped a lot of people out. So we're going to take a look at some of those comments, and I'm going to expound on a few explanations there as well. So let's get to it. Wanted to start off with a couple comments about the Pentax K70. This is one of the best all-around cameras you could ever find. It's very inexpensive regarding digital cameras. It's not a mirrorless camera. It does have the very loud clacking mirror, but that doesn't really bother me. I've even taken it out for street photography, as you can see here, and have some comments about the street photography with the Pentax K70. One of those questions came from Eddie G, who says, "Nice video. Ever get someone get grumpy because you took their pic without consent?" Well, that does happen more than you would think, Eddie. I appreciate the comment. But usually I use the Ricoh GR, GR3, something like that. I've even taken my Canon EOS RP full frame camera out for street photography. And usually you can get away without a shutter click, without the noise, so you can kind of be discreet about it. You just don't look the person in the eye as you're walking by. You'll kind of look like this, or like you're having trouble with your camera, something like that, and you can get away with it. With the Pentax K70, you can't get away with that. With a film camera, you can't get away with that. And you see, I've got videos from my film cameras. They're very loud when it comes to the shutter, so you can't just walk by and silently take a shot of somebody. You just got to have the confidence to do it. And when somebody looks around, it's almost like somebody cutting gas or something. It's like, who was that? I don't know. I'm just messing around with my camera. Did you take a picture of me? Well, no. And just keep walking. You don't owe them an explanation unless they chase you down and try to beat you up. Then you might have a confrontation. Normally, I just walk on by and act like I know what I'm doing, and it's not a problem. But they can't do anything about it. In the United States, it's 100% legal to take somebody's photo without their consent as long as they're in a public place. If you walk into a restaurant and take their picture, they're not in a public place. That's a privately owned business. So you can't do that. If you're at a sporting event, something like that, yeah, you can do it because they give away that right when they buy the ticket. But when you go into a restaurant, now when you take a picture of somebody in a restaurant, technically you're violating their rights. So they could have a problem with that. Most people, though, they're eating, they're on the other side of the glass, they're not going to chase you down. But technically, that's about the only time that it would be considered questionable as far as legality. But being creepy, there's no law against it, but you can prevent that yourself. Okay, Gary says, "I've been doing research on different cameras and I believe you've made up my mind on the K70. I'm doing a trip to the Arctic Circle on my motorcycle and I'll need a tough weather-resistant camera. Thank you so much for your effort and interesting videos." Well, thanks, Gary. I do appreciate that, and what an awesome trip that must be to go to the Arctic. It sounds a little strange you would be riding a motorcycle in the Arctic. Sounds like there'd be a lot of ice and snow and sleet and things like that, but I know that's not always the case. So that sounds like a really cool trip. The Pentax K70 seems like it'd be a little bulky to be carrying around with a motorcycle, but if you're going to go with a DSLR, then the Pentax K70 is definitely the way to go. A more discreet way might be a Ricoh GR, maybe a GR3. You can pick up a Ricoh GR or GR2 for less than $600. The GR is about $400. It would do you fantastic. But if you want interchangeable lenses, things like that, then certainly a Pentax K70 would be the way to go. The problem with the compact camera like a Ricoh GR is you only have one focal length and that's it. Not really great for if you're sliding by, you just want to take a picture, it's going to be a wide angle shot. So if you want zoom lenses, things like that, then of course I would say the X-T1 by Fuji would be a good choice, but overall you're going to have a much better ergonomics with the K70. It just feels real comfortable in your hand. It is a bulkier camera, but you get a zoom on there and you've got a lot of option. I would say that'd be the way to go. Now, Gary also commented on a previous Pentax K70 Street video that I did, and he said I mentioned that I was thinking of the K70 in another video. That's what we just read. Well, I pulled the trigger and won an auction on eBay for a new one. Thanks for your input. Well, that would be awesome, because even used, the K70 is a great camera. So if you got one new, I don't know what the price was, but that should last you forever. Honestly, forever. And another Pentax K70 comment comes from Bill Vinson, who says, I can't believe this camera is considered a beginner camera. Sure, it's not a sports camera, but with shake reduction, the auto features, weather resistant, it is above many of the new, more expensive cameras. I love mine. Okay, I would agree with that, honestly. It is one of the best inexpensive cameras out there. So it is kind of strange that the Pentax K70 can be picked up for as little as $300 to $400. It honestly rivals a lot of cameras that would be in the $700 to $1,000 range. I just can't say enough about the K70. If you're just only going to pick up one DSLR and it's going to be used, look for the Pentax K70 first. Okay, our last Pentax comment comes from Steve. And Steve says, funny, I've watched this now and really like the pic straight out of the camera. I wanted to take this out for street again. Have you had any comments due to the sound of the shutter? Thinking about getting another K70 for street. Almost picked up a D7500, but that Pentax has better colors. Well, I can't speak to the Nikon or any other, or the D700, D7000, whatever that is. I can't speak to those because I don't have them. However, I can tell you the K70, top-notch camera. The colors to me have always been fantastic. I have shot a lot of different types of subjects with the K70 and have always been actually surprised at the quality, the sharpness, the contrast, everything set in the camera on default really comes out great in my opinion. Coulter asks, can I use a 50mm 1.8 lens for real estate photography? Now this goes back to my video about the Canon EOS RP and real estate photography. And so the question is, can you use a 50mm lens, doesn't matter what aperture you're using, for real estate photography? No, you cannot. You cannot get away with a 50mm lens. You can't even do the outside street view with a 50mm lens. That is way too tight. Even on a full frame camera, 50mm would be equivalent to about a 35mm APS-C, which is what most of you might be used to. No, you cannot get away with a 50mm lens. I would smack you if I could, but in a loving way, of course. But no, you cannot. So hopefully that answers your question. Why? Just too long of a focal length. You gotta spend that money and get a better lens. Doesn't have to be a great quality lens, but you gotta get something. APS-C, it's gonna have to be at least minimum 16. If you're looking at full frame, you can get away, you get the 12 and you'd be okay. Just don't get a fisheye. You get a fisheye and everything's going to be distorted and round, and you'll be very unhappy with that. So hopefully that answers that question. Okay, now we're going to move on to the video about publishing your book on Amazon. Some people found it interesting. Some people thought it was cheap quality. I don't think it's cheap quality. And of course, if you're a high-end professional, you may. But I think for the rest of us, the quality that guy got out of Amazon for their book printing was amazing. And just to recap, you might want to go check that video out. It's a long rambling video, and I can kind of sum it up here in 30 seconds. And that was that with Amazon, you go to their KDP department, which is KDP, Kindle Direct Publishing, something like that, kdp.amazon.com. You can sign up, create an account, and you can get your books printed on there. There is no charge to have the book produced. If you get a copy, of course, they do have copy author rates, a cheaper rate, and from $8 to $12, something like that, or actually, I'm sorry, $4 to $12, you can get anything from a 28-page paperback to a 200-page hardbound book. It's pretty amazing. You only have to order one copy at a time if you want, a handful of copies. You don't have to order bulk or anything like that, and it's available on Amazon. So for a lot of us, it's cool just to be able to tell people, hey, my book is available on Amazon. How many people can say that? So it's very cool. You might want to check that out, check the video out, and go to that site. I don't get anything from this at all. There's no kickback to me or anything. I just thought you guys would like to know. And Marcel, one of my good buddies, says, good photo books, Jason. Well, thanks, Marcel. And Rara says, thanks for sharing, Mr. Dozier. Love your attitude and your work. It's inspiring. Well, the idea is to inspire you. The idea is to give you guys ideas, show you how I shoot. That's why most of my videos are point of view, because I've seen a lot of videos where you'll see a really cool photo and you're like, well, how did you get that photo? And I think it's neat when somebody's walking up to a scene and you see a real busy scene and it's like, what's he going to take a photo of? What's the shot going to be? And it's usually not the shot you think it's going to be. You see a subject in his video and you're thinking that's going to be the subject. And then he'll take a different kind of shot, different perspective, something like that. Different focal length, maybe zoomed in, zoomed out, whatever. And to me, that's always a learning experience and a way to kind of get an idea of how to shoot a scene. Because when you see a photo, you think, wow, I'll go out and copy that photo or take a photo just like that. But you don't know how they came upon it. You don't know how they framed it. And it just appears as a great photo. So I always felt it helps to kind of show the scene and then take the photo, show you what I got. Not necessarily the proper angle, maybe not the best angle, maybe not the great rule of thirds, but it gives you an idea to see what it is. So if you come across a scene like that, you can be like, okay, I remember how he did it and he sucked. So I'm going to do it a different way. Regardless of what the inspiration is or where it comes from, the idea is to let you guys see maybe a different perspective on getting out and shooting, again, from somebody else's point of view. Now, the next comment from Shelly, thanks for sharing this. I would certainly enjoy seeing whatever more you might have time to present. And what she's referring to is I did mention that I would probably do another video on how to produce the book, because I know that's going to be the hardest part. It's easy to produce the photos, per se, but getting them in the book, it's not easy. You've got to use InDesign, which is an Adobe program, or you can come up with any program you want, but that's what I use. You got to create a PDF. Sounds a lot easier than it is. I may just make a template, like a 28-page template, and then you can just add more pages to it. Make a very simple generic one that people can use. I think I'm going to do that. Let me know if that is of interest to you. And then Rich says, this is great. Thank you for the info. No problem, Rich. Adrian says, great information. I will be looking into this. Thank you. And that's why I did the video. I don't make anything from it other than viewership, and I hope that it's very helpful for you guys. And we go on, Lisa. And I will say, by the way, I noticed I got a lot more female comments on this video, which I just noticed there's all of a sudden females commenting. So that's cool. I like to get it spread out there a little bit, but I guess the book was what sparked that. But I just found it kind of strange that I don't have a lot of female viewers in the first place. But she says, this is fantastic. I didn't know you could do this. Likewise, I would love to see the process of designing the book, etc. Great work, awesome info. Thank you for sharing. And again, that's why I do it. Forgotten America, he's a regular contributor, says, this is great info, Doge. That's what they used to call me in high school. Publishing can be a challenge. Nice to know different ways to pull it off. And again, it is a challenge. It's very difficult. It's much more difficult than being a photographer. It takes a lot of time. I find the winter time is great for something like that. I don't feel like I'm missing, a beautiful day out there while I'm inside creating a book. So I tend to do those more in the winter time. And Laura, another one of our female viewers, says, I'd love to see a video of the overall process of designing, creating a photo book, things to include, what to leave out, lessons learned, what you do over if you could start over today. Thank you. Well, the beauty of the publishing with Amazon is you can, I should have pointed this out. There were several things I didn't point out that I would have liked to have made more emphasis on in that video. There were a couple books that I pointed out. I'm not happy with this. I'm not happy with that. I'm not stuck with that product. When I say I'm not happy with it, what I meant was I created a version, I sent it in, and I looked at the proof and I didn't like it, so I changed it, sent that in, thought I was going to like that. I didn't like the book dimensions, but I thought I would like it. So I went ahead and had it published. It cost me $6 or $7 or whatever it was. And when I got them, I was like, I don't really like the size. So I have not made those live yet. A couple of those are not available to the public. I'm in the process of re-editing those and changing the size and all that stuff. And then when I get it the way I like it, then you just hit publish, for lack of better words, and that puts it out for the general public to be able to consume. So you do get to go through the proofs. You get to, you know, see what you like, what you don't like. A couple of the photos, because of the monitor, I don't what do you call that? Not collaborate, calibrate the monitor. I just bought a monitor, plugged it in, and that's what I use. And I found that a few of the photos didn't match the brightness. A couple of them were a little duller than normal, but for the most part, they all looked okay. But that's the point of getting a proof. You always want to get a proof of your book, and it takes, you know, a week or so to get it, everything, but it's cool to get it. And you want to look through there and make sure the colors are correct and everything else. And that's just part of the process. So it's a fun process. I enjoy it. And when you get your final product, it's very cool. Okay, these comments always crack me up. I did a video on comparing the Fuji XTI to the Fuji XT3. I had both of the cameras at one point. I sent much like I did the Ricoh GR3 and the Ricoh GR, I sent the 3 back because it was just too expensive. I'm talking about the Fuji XT3, $1,500, something like that. I don't even think that counted the lens. I'm not sure, maybe $1,200. Anyway, it was just too expensive to have as just an all-around camera. So I sent it back and I got an X-T1. X-T1 is phenomenal. It's one of the very few cameras other than the Pentax K70 that I would say will rival a more expensive camera in the fact that you just don't need to upgrade. If you want all the bells and whistles and IBIS and all this kind of stuff that you can get, you know, on a more expensive camera, you do get IBIS on the Pentax K70, by the way. But with the X-T1, you don't get any IBIS. But most of the lenses on that go with the X-T1 do have stabilization with them. You know, if you're shooting above 250th of a second anyway, none of that really matters because it's such a quick shutter that, you know, unless you're just doing this as you take the picture, you're going to be fine. So that really doesn't matter. But the X-T1, to me, phenomenal camera. Feels like a film camera. I love it. It's a great ergonomic, see, I can say the word now, it's a great ergonomic camera. And I think if you're looking at the Fuji line, you might try a used X-T1 first before you spend a lot of money on an X-T4, X-T3. Now you probably get better video out of the 3 and the 4 than you do the 1, I would think. But photo quality, you're not going to see a whole lot of difference. A lot of that is in the camera, or excuse me, a lot of that is in the photographer's eye, not what comes out of the camera. So we'll just leave it at that. But in my opinion, try that X-T1, $300 or $400. You get you a $50, $60, $70 lens. Thing works great. You can go out and have fun with it, not worrying about ruining it or dropping it or having a problem with it because you spent $1,500. So that's the way I kind of look at cameras. And what Roger was complaining about was I haven't watched the video in a while, but I think I compared the X-T3 quite a few times to my Canon EOS RP full frame camera, which is what I'm shooting this video on right now. And I use this for most of my videos. I'm sorry, Roger. I'm just making real world comparisons here. You know, if you want a refund, send that email and we'll see what we can do about getting your money back for all that you spent on the video to watch it. I don't compensate for time, so take that in consideration. Roland says, I love my 2 X-T1s. Okay, a black and a silver. Oh, you went all out and got both. And my X-T3 also. Well, look at there. I won't sell any. Thanks for the video. You know, a lot of people, if you like a camera line, you will like anything in the camera line. And, you know, if you're happy with those, yeah, of course you wouldn't sell them. I'm one of those, though. It's not necessarily more practical. I wouldn't use the word practical, but I tend to, when I get a good camera, I mean, I like that camera and that's it. I don't want to own 3 or 4 cameras of the same line. If I've got an X-T1, I don't need an X-T3 or 4. If I've got I've got a Ricoh GR now, and I don't need the 3. I've got the Canon, or excuse me, the EOS RP. I don't need another Canon. I've got the Pentax K70. I don't need to upgrade to any other Pentax. But again, you know, photography is a hobby. To some, it's a profession, but it's all about personal taste and what you like. So, you know, I mean, if Fuji is your line and you want to own every camera in the Fuji line, who's to tell you you're wrong? I mean, enjoy. That's the whole idea. As long as you enjoy it, fantastic, and I'm glad you enjoyed the video. All right, guys, so that's going to do it for this one. Kind of a short one. I usually ramble a lot more. Next one is going to be the Ricoh comments. I got a lot of blowback on the Ricoh GR3 versus GR videos, and I wanted to save those comments for their own videos. So that will be coming up here in a couple days. Make sure and stay tuned for that. Meanwhile, I do appreciate you guys checking the video out, and we will see you on the next one. So long, everybody.